Alrighty, so today we are going to look at the last 9 games from this match. We look at all the Saturday action, and good news is my voice is a little bit better today. I'm not quite sure how well it's going to be. Hopefully, throughout this video, I doesn't sound like a robot because if you watch my review yesterday, yeah, I think I'm about the quarter away. It definitely does sound like a bit of a robot, but that's part of me just trying to get my voice back together in all shape, trying to recover from the sore throat that I've been having these last couple of days. But with that being said, as I mentioned yesterday, in terms of this match week, there were definitely some upsets and some very unexpected resorts. Some resort that definitely I didn't see coming. I'm pretty sure a lot of people didn't see coming as well. But let's begin with our first game. And our first game, of course, is Philly versus Toronto FC. So this is a classic game of what happened when you don't put your opponent away. The Union, they dominate this game. They were on top for most part of this game. But if there's one thing we know about TFC this season, at least lately, is that this is a team that is a very gritty team. And this is a team that is going to fight and crawl every way, going to make life difficult for you. And most importantly, if you don't put away against them, they will always have the ability to fight back and maybe score a late goal, and that's exactly what we saw in this game between the Union and Toronto. But early on, 4 minutes in, Philly took the lead as Vasilev would score from Baribo to make it 1-0 in favor of the Union. It came off of a lightning counterattack, and you're thinking earlier, well, it looks like this is maybe one of those games where the Union are just going to put an absolute buzzsaw against Toronto because we've seen this before with the Union scoring early and then scoring often after that. Baribo then puts it wide off the deflection. The Union was on the front foot, pushing for another. Glesnes would then puts it high on the volley. The referee was told that she sucked. Yeah, that feels like it's a very Philly staple here, and won't be the last time that the referee was told that she really sucked in this game and suck at her job. In the 25th minute, Brent Hinson with TFC for a shot, but he missed wide before Blake denied Courtbrew from close as TFC started to slowly get into this game and created a couple of chances. Corbinu then had a looping header that goes wide, but we do head to halftime with the Union leading 1-0. In the second half, John Jack puts it wide from 17 yards out. Just like the first half, the Union was on the front foot and they were looking to get another, and they thought they got it as Barreto puts it into the back net. Problem was there an offside on the play? And there was. So the goal, of course, was chopped off. It was still 1-0. Corbinu then puts it right to Blake before Diamani is an absolute sitter from 14 yards out. That just kind of sums up the season for Bruno Diamani. This season, it's just been a season of hell for him in terms of finishing there, and it's got to drive all Union fans crazy in terms of the fact that he's definitely creating the chances, but he's not burying it. And for a guy that they bought to bury those chances, yeah, he's definitely not living up to his end of the bargain. Baribo then puts it over in the 65th minute as Union continued to press for a second. Bueno had a knuckler that was actually punched away by Gavron. Gavron actually got the start in this one. I believe Sean Johnson was injured during training, so that's why Lucas Gavron got the start in this one. Bryn Hinson then go for the acrobatic, but didn't really hit that one correctly. And I thought that shot was kind of a warning for the Union. Again, this is the thing about TFC. They're gonna stay in game. When you look at all the games that they play for the last couple of months, this is a team that doesn't get blown out very often. Robin Fraser, as much as this team doesn't have a lot of talent on their hand, and obviously they now do with the way they have Georgi Mihailovic, who I thought he had a bit of a quiet game in this one, but it's going to take time for him to get implemented into the system. But this is a team that has that grit and that determination, ability to hang into the game. And you're just thinking, if you're the Union, you do not want to let TFC hang into this game as long as possible because you just kind of had a sense that TFC was probably going to sneak a goal and ties this game up. Sullivan would then puts it wide off a deflection, and then we had some big tempers flare after Macania strike a ball to Gavron, and this happened long after the whistle was blown. So yeah, that is no surprise that you're gonna definitely get attention anytime when you try to do something against the opposition goalkeeper. Yeah, you're gonna get attract attention. Though that being said, when the referee was dishing out the yellow cards in that incident, yeah, the referee was told she's sucking again because again that's a typical Philly special, isn't it? Blake then denied long from the header in the 83rd minute before Galveron denied John Jack from long range in the 86th minute. But then in the first minute of stoppage time, TFC ties it up. Is DeAndre Kerr. He scored from Malik Henry to tie the game up at one apiece. Laredo tried to get the lead and try to steal all 3 points for TFC in this one, but his shot was deflected wide, and now seems like Toronto were the one that is looking to try to steal this one late. And again, for the Union, they have no one to blame but themselves in this one. They didn't put this game away. They kept TFC in this game, and as a result, they dropped some valuable points in this one, and they're very thankful the fact that they're still at the top of the supporter shield because Cincinnati also wasn't able to capitalize on it. But the shots in this one, 11 shots committed, 9 that Toronto has. Both team had 4 shots on goal, 5 shots off target with the 4 that TFC had, 1 shot that was blocked with the 2 that the Union has, and possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that TFC has in this game. And, if the Union doesn't win the supporter shield or they miss out on the supporter shield for a couple of points, they're going to look back at this game. And they're also going to look back at some of the other games that they dropped points as well because this is a team that it's hard to believe they're leading the supporter shield so far this season, but yet you just kind of had a sense there's some games where they just let it slip away and they probably would have had a more comfortable lead. I mean, this year's supporter shield race is kind of interesting because in previous year we usually see the supporter shield winner run away with the lead. This year it's kind of the opposite. It feels like there's not really a true team that is really running away with it. There's times where teams kind of slip in some of these games, drop points that they probably shouldn't do so, and that's kind of the reason why the Union are still in this and are somehow still at the top of the supporter shield standings, despite the fact that they have these kind of resort that is just kind of almost a head scratcher of how in the world does as a team that is so called the best team in the league have these kind of resort. Though you got to credit Toronto, and again, this is the thing about Robin Fraser. For the rest of the season, it's not about making the playoffs. For the rest of the season, it's about playing prime, be that very gritty team, and I think Robin Fraser has done a really good job with it, despite the fact that it is pretty clear that they don't have the talent to compete day in and day out and are ready to be a playoff contender. But that being said, moving on in the next game, and that, of course, is New England and DC. So these next two games are kind of games between two bottom feeders, kind of like the sad derby, because these next two games are between teams that probably are not going to make the playoffs, but we still got to talk about it between the Revs and DC United. Now in the first half, Bartlett would then heads it wide from the corner as that was the game's first shot before Shankalai missed wide from close range. The shots were one apiece early as it's been a slow game, not much chances in both and both teams kind of struggle in the final third, which is kind of expected. I thought this game looked like it might have 0-0 written all over it. Thing is, it didn't end 0-0 though. Rollis would then hits it wide from close range before Turner denied keep Kojima, but he did give up a rebound and was able to smother it on the second attempt. So a little bit shaky there for Matt Turner returning to the team that kind of made himself a name and the reason why he's in the national team picture. But really, for the first time tonight, I thought DC started had some sustained pressure. They were looking for the opening goal. Campana would then puts it wide on the header, but we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. In the second half, Benteke would head it wide from close before Campana hits one that was actually spilled by him, but was luckily gathered on the second attempt. So again, talk about shaky goal keeping. Kim actually got his starting spot back in this one. I don't know if he's gonna get his starting spot back after this game because yeah, if he didn't gather that one, that was actually heading goal bound, and he is very fortunate that he was able to gather on the second attempt. But just 4 minutes later, he couldn't do anything about this as Leon Campana would open the score line from Carlos Hill to make it 1-0 in favor of New England. That goal looks like the New England of the old. That was just so well worked for the Revs. And if there's one thing about Carlos Hill, yes, he is not the same player as he was a couple of years ago, but he still is a magician. I mean, he is a guy that can still pull the string of this New England attack, and he did it again in this one, setting up Campana perfectly to give the refs a 1-0 lead. Priani did look to answer, but he curls it wide before Stroud would hits it right to Turner in the 65th minute. DC, I thought, responded well. They were trying to press for the equalizer, but instead, in the 70th minute, Carlos Hill would get on the score sheet. So he scored from Miller to make it 2-0 in favor of New England. Shroud did look to answer, but he missed wide on the volley before Patola would hit one off deflection in the 82nd minute. Once again, DC, I thought, responded well after giving up the goal, but the question is, can they get one back and can they fill their clinical fit team, which was definitely missing in this game. Baji would then hits it right to Turner before Campana hits it wide from close in the 6 minute stoppage time. But yeah, in the end, New England, they end this winless run that they been on to get the 2-0 win against DC. I mean, in many ways, they had to get this win. If there's any chance that they are going to make the playoffs, this is a game that they absolutely have to win, especially against a lowly DC side. Shots in this one, 13 shots with 11 that DC had, 4 shots on goal for the 3 that New England has, 5 shots off target for the 6 that DC had, 1 shot on was blocked for the 5 that New England has, and possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 46% possession that DC has in this game. I don't think either of these teams is going to make the playoffs. But hey, I mean, for New England, maybe they'll have a bit of a run again. When you look at the latter part of the season, I do think that if this team doesn't make the playoffs, you got to say Caleb Porter is probably gone. I'm kind of surprised that he still has a job right now. I mean, it's hard to believe. I don't know how much immunity he has with the New England front office right now, but with all the things that New England has gone through, I am really surprised that Caleb Porter is still in the job right now for the Revs, despite the fact that this team has been one of the more disappointing team this season, especially the collapse that they had in the summer as well. Speaking of disappointing teams, so that's kind of the case with Atlanta United this season. And the frustrating thing about Atlanta lately is the fact that not only they're not getting wins, but they're getting a lot of draws, and a lot of these draws are just them scoring late goals as well. I mean, well, late goals usually are great to see, and you usually see teams score late goals to salvage a result. For a team that if they have any little playoff hope that they have, which I don't think they have to, that's got to be frustrating. The fact that it just kind of feels like it feels like it's kind of like that the not only delay the inevitable, but it just kind of gives that false hope. The fact that well, we at least salvage a point by getting a draw, but it doesn't seem like there's any progress that is being made with this team. Now, in the first half, Atlanta was on the front foot as they created a couple half chances to begin. Lobjanidze would puts one wide from close range before Giller would denied would deny latte laugh, but it recycled and Almiron had a chance as well, but he was also denied by Giller. So Giller, of course, getting the start in this one. Siwans was not available in this one. Not quite sure why that is the case. But the first shot for Montreal did see Petrasso puts it over from the corner before Owusu would head it right to Guzan. The post would then deny Sealy from long range. Feels like Montreal have woke up after a bit of a slow start in this one. Definitely didn't start on time in this one. They were looking to try to get the opener. Latte Laugh was in on go here, but this is Latte Laugh, and he's gonna miss it because yeah, that's just kind of the season he's been having, and that also came off a bad turnover from Montreal as well. So if you're gonna give up a bad turnover, the guy that you probably would hope to fall to if you can get away with it is Latte Laugh because again, he just cannot buy a goal this season when it comes to open play. Mijer would then hits it right to Gillier, but then in the 40th minute, Montreal takes the lead as Dante Sealy would score from Clark and Owusu to give Montreal a 1-0 lead. Sinchek trying to make it 2-0, but he missed one in the 45th minute. The momentum was definitely with Montreal late. They were looking to try to get another before halftime, but we do head to halftime with Montreal leading 1-0. In the second half, Giller would deny Lennon from close range as I thought Atlanta was kind of started to be on top again in this one, creating some chances. And for Montreal, it feels like they're kind of sitting back and almost kind of protecting this 1-0 lead way too early. Like anytime when you try to go rogue heave mode and try to just play a very defensive game to try to hold on, especially early in the second half, it usually doesn't go well for you, especially for a bad team like Montreal this season. Duke would then puts it wide from long range before Buraco would head it wide from the corner in the second minute. Clark would then hits one right to Guzan, but then in the 87th minute, Moranchuk would score to tie the game up at one apiece, and this was from a header as well. That is something that I definitely did not think Moranchuk has in his arsenal. He's a guy that is more known for long range scoring. I didn't think he can hit this one from a header, though. To be fair, he was wide open in the box. I mean, it was not great set piece defending whatsoever for Montreal, and then he looked to try to get the lead for Atlanta late in this one, but the post denied him on the curler, and in the end, it ends in a 1-1 draw in this one. The shots in this one, 16 shots for the 9 that Montreal has, 5 shots on goal for the 3 that Montreal has. Both teams had 5 shots off target, 5 shots out block for the none that Montreal has, and possession-wise, 63% possession compared to 37% possession that Montreal has in this game. And I said about Caleb Porter of how I'm kind of surprised that he's still in a job. I'm kind of surprised that Ronnie Delia is still in a job right now. There's been a lot of grumblings in the Atlanta fan base of want him to get fired from this team, and right now you just wonder is that going to happen, especially in the latter part of the season. I mean, I know he's a new head coach, but and that maybe you give him a little bit of leeway because of his first year. Maybe he'll turn it around the second year, but for a team that has a lot of ambition and expectation, especially with this Atlanta front office, tends to not be very patient when it comes to head coach. I'm kind of surprised this year that they're being a little bit more patient and giving Ronnie Daly a little bit more of a leeway because, like I said, these resort of them getting a late point to salvage resort, it's not really going to help their causes in terms of a late playoff push or even just their progress of what has just been a nightmare season and a very underachieving kind of season for this Atlanta United team. Now, moving on into the last game on this board, and I have to switch the game three two times in this one. I almost said three times. I had to of course erase this board and put on one more game because there's 9 games that happened this week. But yeah, the next one is a game that is definitely one of the biggest surprise this season. A result that I don't think anyone saw this coming with St. Louis getting the win against Nashville. Now, I will say this. Remember what I said yesterday, where when you have teams that have play a lot in the Leagues Cup, and when you're facing against a team that have much more of the rest. Well, you're thinking that the team with the much better rest and doesn't participate in the Leagues Cup will have the advantage against teams that did participate in the Leagues Cup because they they of course get plenty of rest, whereas the other team probably are very tired by the time they get back to league play. But you can't say that about this game because neither of these teams participate in the Leagues Cup, and you just wonder again. The other thing that can also play into to mind is the fact that when it comes to the sharpness, because you have a 2 week off, and in a busy season like this, 2 week off is definitely a lot of time. You just wonder, was Nashville just not prepared for this game? It just feels like their sharpness was just not there in this game against the St. Louis side. That this is looked like a St. Louis side. The way that they play in this game looked like more of the expansion St. Louis that we saw in their first season. Now, in the first half, Clausewood puts it wide from long range in the first minute before Brookman puts it wide from long range as the shots were only one apiece 15 minutes in. There was a crazy sequence in the 22nd minute where Willis denied Ostrak, but then it falls to Orozco and he gets a second chance, but somehow that one was clear off the line. And then Marcel Hardo get a third chance for St. Louis, and he was denied by Willis. So just a last ditch kind of moment there for Nashville as St. Louis came really close of getting the opening goal. But nevertheless, 1 minute after that crazy sequence, they do get that opening goal as Orozco would score his first for St. Louis from Padel for to tie or to give St. Louis a 1-0 lead. Great to see that Devin Padelfort got on the assist chart in this one. I don't remember any times I only remember rarely that Padelfort actually ends up to be on the score sheet or even on the assist chart when he was with Minnesota. Obviously, he's not known to be a creative player, but it's good to see him get on the assist chart. And it was a good night for former Loons player in this one as well. But yeah, that goal, you kind of saw it coming. St. Louis was the better team. They took a 1-0 lead. Mukhtar did look to answer, but he puts it high there. But then in the 39th minute, St. Louis take it 2-0. As Jean Claus would score from Leuven to make it 2-0 in favor of St. Louis. Willis, yeah, this is one that he does not want to look back. I mean, yeah, this was just one that goes in the near post there. Klaus didn't really hit that one relatively well, and that is one that you expect Joe Willis with the quality that he has and the way that he has been really good this season for Nashville. That is one that he knows that he's got to save. But nevertheless, St. Louis were up 2-0 in this one. Sunbin did look for another, but he puts it over in the 41st minute. If you're a St. Louis fan, you're thinking, who is this team? I mean, this does not look like the St. Louis team from this season or last season as well, because this looked like more of the expansion St. Louis team playing that very beautiful attack that we see. And this is what St. Louis was hoping under Dave Critchley, and at least they kind of got a vision of this in this one. Yazbek would then puts it wide from long range in the fourth minute stoppage time, but we do head to halftime with St. Louis, surprisingly taking a 2-0 lead against Nashville. In the second half, Surridge would then hit one that was denied by Berkey, but then it was still goal bound, and Berkey did just enough to gather this one as it goes in. Surge had a really quiet game in this one. This was very unlike him. He's always very active in this one. In fact, I thought St. Louis, for the most part, did a really good job in terms of shutting down Surge and Mukhtar. And that's kind of the thing. If you can shut down Surge and Mukhtar for this Nashville team, which is not easy to do, and not a lot of teams is able to do so, but if you can shut them down, then you could definitely have a shot to beat Nashville because those are the two players that has been the dangerous man this season for this Nashville team. Klaus would then heads it wide from close as both of these teams was exchanging some chances early on, but then the 66th minute, St. Louis would make it 3-0. And it's great to see this. Sun Bin scoring his first for St. Louis. I believe this is only his third goal in his career at MLS. I know he didn't score a lot of goals when he was with Minnesota, but this is definitely a very, very, very bittersweet moment to see some Ben gets on the score sheet from Betcher to make it 3-0 in favor of St. Louis. I mean, some Ben will be forever, known as a favorite in the Loons fan base, and it's great to see that he's having some success with St. Louis. As long as he doesn't score against Minnesota, I would always root for him to do well with St. Louis City. But in the 69th minute, Mayer would then heads it right to Berkey before Brookman, which struck the post from close range as Nashville finally woke up. I mean, it took them only to go 3-0 down to finally wake up in this one, but you just kind of had a sense it was maybe too little, too late for this team. Though I say that, but St. Louis has had their problems this season when it comes to closing out games and also giving up late goals, and that kind of continued in the 80th minute when a penalty was given to Nashville after Morales brought down Mukhtar in the box. So here comes Mukhtar, a chance to at least get one back for Nashville. But Berkey says no. He denied Mukhtar from the spot, but they did go to VAR to see whether or not if Berkey was off his lines. He was, but this is where I have a problem with this play. So it was pretty clear that Mukhtar pretty much stopped on his stutter step. I never like players when they do stutter step to shoot. I mean, I know as a Loons fan, I would say that Yeboah, of course, does it all the time, and sometimes I do kind of find it annoying that he does it, and I get that that's maybe part of the tactics when you kind of take penalties, but when you do a stutter step, there's more times than not I've seen players that miss the penalty because if the goalkeeper doesn't move when you try to do the stutter step, then you're in serious trouble. And Berkey does a good job to stay on his guard there, although he didn't stay on his line there. But again, I know no St. Louis fan will not be happy because yeah, Mukhtar just kind of completely stopped in that stutter step. You can't do that when you take a penalty, but nevertheless, they said that Berkey was off his line. So the penalty was retaken. Mukhtar gets a second crack of it, and he buries it on the second crack of it to make it 3-1 in favor of St. Louis. That time he just pretty much blast that one. Kind of did something similar to what we saw with Choupo-Moting when he missed the first penalty with the Panenka, and then the second chance that he has, he just pretty much didn't think about making it fancy. He just blast that one in, and just like that, it's 3-1 in this one. Brookman would then hits it right to Berkey. Momentum was with Nashville, and again, I didn't think this was over because again, we seen before the season a 3-0 lead isn't usually a sure thing as we've seen in the past, and especially with the St. Louis side, you just kind of had a sense that oh boy, St. Louis fans are probably starting to get a little nervy even with the 2-goal lead. Palacio would then hits it right to Berkey, and then Muir would score looked like the second goal of the game, and that really maybe make it even more tense inside Energizer Park in this one. But fortunately for St. Louis case, the goal of course was disallowed for offside. It was not offside. That goal should have been counted, and I'm pretty sure Nashville fans are not going to be very happy with that. I mean, I look on the replay a couple of times. I just don't see the offside. Like I don't know who is in the offside moment there. Very surprised they didn't go to VAR to look at it, but nevertheless, that feels like it's a warning sign for the St. Louis side because again, even with a 2-goal lead, even heading into stoppage time, you wouldn't bet you wouldn't definitely not bet your money on the fact that St. Louis somehow find a way to screw it up because that's just kind of how the season has been for St. Louis. They had a lot of troubles this season in terms of playing a full 90-minute game and struggle late in games as well. Though they did have a chance to make it 4-1 if it wasn't for the post denying Betcher there in the 8th minute stoppage time. But thankfully for St. Louis, they held on to win 3-1 in this one. The shots in this one, 14 shots for the 18 that Nashville has. Most of the shots that Nashville has came in the latter part of the game when they were pretty much in control in this one. And the fact that, St. Louis kind of stopped playing after getting that third goal. They really looked very vulnerable in the last 20 minutes of this game. 7 shots on target for the 6 that Nashville had, 7 shots off target for the 2 that St. Louis had, 5 shots was blocked for the 3 that Nashville has, and possession-wise, 56% possession for the 44% possession that St. Louis has in this game. So as the old saying goes, all good teams eventually is going to have a bad game, and I feel like this is an example of Nashville. We don't see this very, very often this season where they have a bad game. For part they have a good game, and even in some of the bad games that they have, they still find a way to get all 3 points. This was one of those games where they were just so bad in this one where they just does not look like themselves. I don't think this is the Nashville that we see for the rest of the season. I think this again maybe due to the fact that they have such a long layoff. BJ Callahan team have been rolling, and when you have such a long layoff like that, it just kills the momentum of the team. And this is also why when you look at the playoff format this season with a 2 week break, that's got to be a little concern if you're PJ Cowan, and maybe kind of concern for everybody. The fact that after you get a big win in the first round, then you get a 2 week layoff, and that just kind of kill all the momentum you had heading into the next round. But nevertheless, I think Nashville will bounce back. I mean, if they do lose a couple of games, then yeah, there are definitely some red flag. But for now, I think this is just one of those games where even some of the best teams have all not off nights, and Nashville just kind of had that. And for St. Louis, good on them to capitalize on it. But I don't think this will do much. I mean, when you look at the West, I know the West are more competitive when it comes to the playoff race. But I mentioned two teams that probably are already out of it, and those two teams are St. Louis and the Galaxy. I don't think St. Louis is going to potential. There's still a long way in terms of trying to get themselves back in the playoff race, and with just so little games, I think even if they go on a crazy run like they did last season in the second half of the season, I think it's too little too late for this team to make a run for the playoffs again. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the next 4 games to continue this last 9 game review that I look of the Saturday night action of match week number 28. All right, so moving on, we got Dallas versus the Portland Timbers, and this is more like it for Dallas, a team that are definitely still in the playoff race. But the frustrating thing about Dallas this season is that they've been very inconsistent this year, and more times than not, they haven't been able to get win at home, which is kind of the reason why they're maybe missing out the playoffs. But they were able to get a win in this one against the Portland Timbers, and early on. Super Rich with the game's first shot, but he hits it right to Kolodi. But then in the 8th minute, Pedro Musa would score to make it 1-0 in favor of Dallas. And something tells me he's going to carry this team to the playoffs because he's been on fire this season for this FC Dallas team. Though this is one that, yeah, you would love to thank Maxime Crepeau for this. An absolute gift here. Crepeau, he has had his problem this season. In fact, the Canadian national team, man, all of a sudden, there's got to be concern if you're a Canadian national team fan with the fact that both goalkeeper Dane Sinclair and Maxime Crepeau has not been in the best of form. And here, Crepeau just spilled an easy catch there, one that you expect any goalkeeper to make, and he just kind of dropped it. I mean, that's all I can say about that the description because that's literally what happened. And when you do that, especially you did it right in front of a dangerous player like Musa, yeah, you're gonna get punished all the time. So he was punished. It was 1-0 in favor of Dallas. Musa then looked for another, but he puts it over before Mora had a shot that was deflected and goes high. Farrington then had a shot that was deflected off of his own teammate and goes wide there. And after both of these teams were getting some good chances, we did go for a period where not much really happened. Colati would then deny DaCosta from close in the 36th minute, and we do head to halftime with Dallas leading 1-0. In the second half, Abubakar would head it wide from close in the 46th minute before Colati denied DaCosta from long range. But then in the 62nd minute, Abubakar would be on target. He scored from legit to make it 1-0 in favor of Dallas, or I'm sorry, 2-0 in favor of FC Dallas, and that was just an absolute bullet header. I have not seen a player hit that hit a header like that from a corner that hard than what I saw with Abubakar here. And yeah, you can also thank the fact that there was not great set piece defending there from the Portland Timbers that allowed that bullet header. But nevertheless, it was 2-0 in favor of Dallas. Jala did look to answer, but he missed wide from close before Leggett would heads it wide from close in the 80th minute. Farrington would then heads it wide from close in the 83rd minute as Dallas were looking for more. I mean, this Timbers team, they look like they're absolutely exhausted. And maybe this is kind of the reason why Phil Neville's side wasn't playing very well. I mean, it's one thing to, of course, play a game in Texas on short rest, but to do it twice in a week, remember they play against Club America down in Austin, you just kind of had a sense that this team was absolutely fatigued because of it. But the shots in this one, 9 shots compared to 8 that the Timbers had, 3 shots on goal compared to 2 that Dallas had, 4 shots off target compared to 1 that the Timbers had, 4 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Dallas had, and possession wise, 57% possession compared to 41% possession that Dallas has in this one. I wrote 51% possession compared to 41. That doesn't make sense. It's actually 59% possession. I forgot to put the 9 there. But anyway, yeah, for Dallas, big win for them there. In many ways, they kind of capitalized against a Timber side that you can clearly see that they're exhausted. And this is an example of what I said about where when one team have been very exhausted after playing the Leeds Cup, while the other doesn't have to worry about that. Yeah, the other team basically capitalized, especially when you face against a team that not only is very exhausted, but like I said, anytime you have to play in Texas twice in a span of 3 days, yeah, it's going to be a mental toll to any team, especially in the middle of summer right now as well. Now, moving on in terms of the next match. So was a very anticipated matchup between Chicago and LAFC because this was the debut of Sung Hyun Min. So there's no doubt that a lot of fans, of course, watched this game. I mean, it was pretty much a sold out crowd at SeatGeek Stadium, which that's something you don't usually see when Chicago decided to play some of their games at their old venue in this one. But again, I guarantee a lot of Korean fans, at least in the Chicago area, was very excited to see Sung Hyun Min here. And while they didn't see him score a goal in this one, he definitely made an impact in this one in terms of at least get a point for LAFC in this one. Now in the first half, LAFC had most of the possession as Chicago was kind of sitting in a low block here, something you usually don't see that happen, but I guess they were kind of forcing LAFC trying to break them down. And in the 10th minute, they actually get to the opening goal, Chicago, as T-Ran would score for Zikanago to make it 1-0 in favor of Chicago. That was actually the first shot of the game as well. So, yeah, great on the fire in terms of capitalizing when they need it, because when you face against the quality that LAFC has, you have to take your chances, and they took it in the 10th minute. And then it looked like they got a penalty in the 15th minute when Hugo Kuipers went down in the box. They did go to Vieira, at least had a brief check to see whether or not if that was the case. The answer is no, so no penalty was given to the Fire. On the other end, Brady would deny Ordaz from close range, but then in the 19th minute, LAFC ties it up. It's Holmshead. He scored from Martinez to tie the game up at one apiece. It looked like the ball did cross the line there. I didn't really get a good replay of that. I mean, they show the replay a couple of times, but they don't really show it relatively well. And I'm kind of surprised they didn't maybe go to VR to double check to make sure if that ball did cross the line there. But nevertheless, they said that it did cross the line, so the game was tied up at one apiece. Ziganago tried to respond, but he fires it wide from long range. But we do head to halftime with the score tied up at one apiece. There wasn't really a lot of chances in the first half. That would be different heading into the second. Starting in the 48th minute with Jesus had a shot that was deflected right to Brady, and then he denied Tillman from close in the 58th minute. LAFC was definitely pressing the lead and with a better team early on. Gutierrez then puts it wide from close range, and then around the hour mark, this is when the moment happened. When Sung Hyun Min was summoned into this one, the standing ovation was being made. Even Fire fans were doing standing ovation because, again, anytime when you have a big name player coming out of Europe, which we have seen a lot lately in MLS. Yeah, this feels like it's kind of a moment that everybody but going to this game is waiting to see. Though in the 66th minute, Bamba would miss one from long range, but in the 70th minute, he would be on target. So he scored from Zikanago to give the Fire a 2-1 lead. Zikanago, not a great game for him there. He's been a very instrumental piece for the Chicago team, and dare I say, he's been very underrated this season. I haven't had a lot of people talk about how Ziganago is considered to be one of the best 10 in the league, but this season that he's kind of showed that. I mean, he's just pulling the string like an absolute maestro this season for the Chicago Fire. Bouanga did look to respond, but he was denied by Brady, and then he actually spilled this one, and Jesus had a chance to capitalize it, but he puts this one wide. In fact, it was deflected wide as well. So Chris Brady, a little fortunate there to not get punished because of the mistake he made. And then on the other end, the post would deny Gutierrez from close range. This is when the game really started to become very end to end, which usually that does not favor the Chicago Fire. That usually favor LAFC. LAFC would always love to play a very open game. And in the 79th minute, they got a penalty. And this happened when T-Ron brought down Son in the box. Son basically went beast mode there. How many times we have seen him does this throughout his career with Tottenham. And yeah, he won the penalty there. They actually had to go to VAR to make sure that is the case, and indeed it is. So here comes Boanga, a chance to bury it from the spot. He has had his issue lately from the spot, Denis Boanga, but this time he makes no mistakes to tie the game up at two apiece, and that was pretty much it in this game. There wasn't really much that happened, at least in the last couple of minutes and heading into stoppage time, as it ends in a 2-2 draw. The shots in this one, 10 shots for the 12 that LAFC had, 6 shots on goal for the 3 that Chicago has, 4 shots off target for the 1 that LAFC had, 5 shots that was blocked for the 2 that Chicago has, and possession-wise, 52% possession compared to 48% possession that LAFC has in this game. And well, I know LAFC will be disappointed that they didn't get all 3 points in this one. They got to be very excited about Sung Hyun Min. I mean, he's been definitely been advertised, at least from this game's really troubling that fire back line at times, and even draw a penalty on himself that ends up to be the tying goal for LAFC. And if he can continue that, watch out. This is an LAFC team that, I mentioned Seattle, of course, is a team that is an absolute wagon right now and is a team that looks like is the team to beat. Do not be surprised LAFC is going to be right up there as well. And do not be surprised we're going to see another Seattle versus LAFC matchup. It feels like that is a matchup we see every single year in the playoffs, and it feels like maybe both of those teams might be heading to a collision course again, especially where they are in the seeding. We might see it once again early in the playoffs, just like what we saw last year as well. Now, moving on into the next game, we got Austin versus the Houston Dynamo, and Austin blew it in this one. They had a 2-0 lead in this one. Looked like they were on their way to get all 3 points, and then yeah, the last 10 minutes happened in this one. In the 4th minute, Holmes with the game's first shot, but it was deflected wide before Ponce missed wide from close in the 6th minute. Wolf would then hits one right to Bond in the 13th minute, and then Andrade would heads it right to Stuver in the 17th minute, as the shots were 2 apiece early on in this one. But despite the chances, I didn't think either of these shots really trouble either of these goalkeeper. Andrade would then puts one right to Stuver before Bakari hits it just high in the 23rd minute. To be fair, this game was really even for the most part, kind of what you expect when you see a Copa Tijas kind of game where both teams really want to win this to get themselves in a better position in terms of winning the Copa Tijas by the end of this season. But yeah, despite the fact that both of these teams get the chances, who can get that opening goal? The answer is Los Verdes. As in the 31st minute, Austin would takes the lead. It's Ilie that score here to give Los Verdes a 1-0 lead. Bond actually did make the save on Ilie, but unfortunately for him, it kind of bounced right back to Ilie. He puts it into the empty net on the rebound, and then just 9 minutes later, they would make it 2-0 as Guillermo Biro would score from Bakari to make it 2-0 in favor of Austin. I did kind of wonder whether or not if the ball from Bakari, did the ball actually cross the line there, because they didn't really show the replay a couple of times. I'm kind of surprised they didn't go to VAR to double check to make sure that is the case, because it was very, very close that ball crossed the end line, and that probably should have been a goal kick instead of a second goal for Austin. But nevertheless, they said it was a second goal. It's 2-0 in favor of Austin. Rubio trying to make it 3-0, but it was deflected and goes wide, as Austin was definitely feeling it up to this point. They had all the momentum. They were looking to try to get a third goal, though Andrade did try to get one back for Houston, but he heads it wide from close in the 6th minute of stoppage time, and we do head to halftime with Austin leading 2-0. In the second half, Wolf would put it wide from close, as I thought both of these teams having some half chances on the attack, but again, not much really trouble either goalkeeper, just like what we saw in the beginning of the first half. Though Stuver in the 73rd minute had to deny Linger from close range, but then a penalty was given to the Dynamo as VAR deemed that Robert Taylor brought down Ortiz in the box. So here comes Jack McLean, a chance to make this interesting late in this one in the Copa Tijas from the spot, and he does exactly that. So it's now 2-1 in favor of Austin. Bond would then miss the punch on Pereira free kick, and he's fortunate that one goes out for a corner, because that wouldn't have not been a great moment for the Houston netminder. And then he denied Bakari on the doorstep of goal, as now Austin was trying to restore their 2-goal lead. But again, the theme of this review, as you already started to see, is the fact that when you don't put away your chances, especially you don't trying to make get a more comfortable scoreline heading into the latter minute, yeah, the other team is going to pounce on, because after Kowacic we missed just wide from close range, a moment that Kowacic would love to have back, because that was a wide open shot that he has. Well, he kind of got bailed out just 1 minute later, because Jack McGlynn would score again for the Dynamo, as he scored from an alley to tie the game up at 2 apiece. They took a fortunate deflection and goes in there, but nevertheless, again, Austin, they paid the price for not making this more comfortable late in this one. Bureau would then look to respond, but he puts it wide in the 3rd minute stoppage time. Keep in mind, there was a lot of stoppage time in this one. There was like 12 minute of stoppage time as a result. Nelly would then puts one right to Stuver. Both of these teams were pushing for a winner in this Copa Tias meeting. Kowacic would then puts it wide from long range, and then Pereira would puts one into the stands in the 11 minute of stoppage time. But in the end, despite both of these teams had some chances to win it late, it ends in a 2-2 draw. The shots in this one, 19 shots with 13 that Austin had, 7 shots on goal to the 5 that Austin had. Both teams had 4 shots off target, 4 shots that was blocked with the 5 that Houston had, and possession-wise, 52% possession compared to 48% possession that Austin has in this one. And there's no doubt that I think the Dynamo will be the more happier side. And this is the response that Ben Olsen was hoping for his team. I mean, down 2-0, things have definitely not gone well. I mean, they had a disastrous run in the Leeds Cup, and it feels like it's going to linger into the league format as well. But they show some mental toughness, as we have seen a couple of times this season with the Dynamo, showing that mental toughness that to come back and get a result. But for Austin, they absolutely blew it in this game. They had the win on their side, and yes, while they did give up a lot of chances in this one, and their defense was definitely a little bit more open than what Nico Estevez would like to say. You have a 2-0 like that, especially at home, you have to get all 3 points, and especially with them in the midst of a playoff race like that. Well, this game might be a moment they might look back if they do miss out on the playoffs by a couple of points, especially like I said, they had this game one in the bag, and then it didn't. Now, moving on, in terms of the last match, before I gotta have to erase the board and put up the last game of this 9 game review, is Sporting KC versus San Diego. So it's not very often I say that the losing team in this game was the better team in this one, and especially it's not very often I say that the losing team will be kind of proud of the performance that they put, but that's kind of how it is in this one. I mean, Sporting KC, they were by far the better team in this one against San Diego. They put a lot of chances in this one, but like I said, the theme of this review, and really I think another theme of this game is teams don't bury chances when they're given. They were being punished because the other team were being more clinical, and that's the reason why the other team was able to get the victory. Now, in the first half, for the 22 minutes, if you didn't watch the first 22 minutes, you don't have to worry. Nothing really happened in the first 22 minutes. In fact, the first shot of the game in this one is in the back of the net, as Chucky Lozano would score from Dreyer to make it 1-0 in favor of San Diego. Just kind of vintage Chucky there with a long range effort there, and he absolutely smashed that one to the back of the net. And just like that, San Diego take a 1-0 lead. Showery did look to answer, but he puts it over before Muniz who puts it wide on the chip in the 29th minute. I thought Sporting has responded well. They were looking to try to get the equalizer. Dos Santos did deny Showery in the front post, so Dos Santos, of course, back in this game after he's been out a couple of weeks. I'm kind of surprised they did not decide to stay with Sisiega, because Sisiega has done a really good job in relief ever since Dos Santos went down with that injury. But he then denied Jovic, but falls right to Ndembe. But his shot was clear off the line on his second attempt. And yeah, I mean, it's just nonstop pressure from Sporting KC. You just kind of had a sense eventually that we're going to get the equalizer, though. As I said, that Dreyer almost made it 2-0, but he puts it wide from close in the 6th minute of stoppage time, and we do head to halftime with San Diego somehow leading 1-0, despite the fact that Sporting KC were by far the better team in the first half. That kind of continued in the second half, though. Dwyer did have a chance coming out of the break as well, but he hits one right to Polkam before Sulamanov would cross it wide in the 47th minute from close range, and then Showery would puts it wide in the 51st minute as Sporting start to kind of picked up where they left off. They were trying to press to try to get the equalizer again, but instead in the 70th minute, really against the run of play, Anders Schreier would score to make it 2-0 in favor of San Diego. It did take a wicked deflection as well, and when you have a season like San Diego has, yeah, deflection obviously is going to go their way. So that made it 2-0. That's got to be a backbreaker for Sporting KC. But to Sporting KC credit, they didn't stop pushing to try to get one back. Though Valkyrie did try to make it 3-0, but he hits it right to Polshan. For Miller would hits it wide from the corner in the 77th minute, and then Showery would hits it right to Dos Santos in the 87th. It just feels like it's not going to be Sporting night. No matter what kind of chances that they were putting, not showing their clinical finishing that they need in this one. And when you face the likes of San Diego at the top of the Western Conference, you got to do that in terms of your clinical finishing. Showery would then hits one right to Dos Santos, but yeah, in the end, San Diego, they kind of. I mean, I don't want to say this was a smash and grab because they did have their chances as well in this one, but it kind of felt like it with the way that Sporting KC were by far the better team in this one. But like I said, soccer is kind of a weird game at times, and we do see sometimes where just because you're the better team doesn't mean you end up on the winning side. And this was a classic example of it. The shots in this one, 22 shots for the six that San Diego has, 5 shots on goal for the seven that Sporting KC had, 6 shots off target for the none that San Diego has, 1 shot that was blocked for the nine that Sporting KC had, and possession wise, 46% possession for the 54% possession that San Diego has in this game. That being said, I am now going to switch board and look at the last game to finish off this 9 game review of all 9 games that happened on Saturday in match week number 28. All right, so last game to review in this video is the San Jose Earthquakes and the Vancouver Whitecaps, and I gotta say, the Quakes needed this one badly. I mean, it's been a very bad run of form for the Quakes going back to July. They're pretty much in a complete free fall and kind of playing themselves out of the playoff position, but they do get a much needed win in this one, and not an easy one against one of the top team in the Western Conference and in the league as well, albeit, yes, it was very controversial, and I do not blame Vancouver Whitecaps fans being very upset that the referee kind of screwed them over in this game. Now, in the first half, Arango would put it wide from long range before Muni would head it wide from close range, as I thought it was a positive start from the Quakes, not showing really their 2 week rust that they had since the last game. Again, maybe this is them capitalizing against a team that I believe Vancouver also didn't play in the Leeds Cup as well. So I guess maybe the Vancouver is kind of showing a bit of a rust in this one. White would then puts it high from long range. The shots were 2 apiece early in this one, but then the 27th minute, this is where controversy number one happened in this one. There was 2 very controversial play that I really think kind of gone against the Whitecaps, as Ocampo would get his second yellow card in this one. That was a very soft second yellow. I don't think that was a worthy of a second yellow card. And again, Whitecaps fans will be very upset that that, of course, is the case, because now all of a sudden, with the red card, now the Quakes does kind of have the belief that maybe they can actually cause an upset in this one against Vancouver. Espinoza would then puts it wide from long range before Costa puts it wide from long range in the 40th minute. And with the man up, the Quakes will continue to be on the front foot, looking to try to get the opener, though in the second minute of stoppage time, Takolka would deny Wilson from long range, and despite the fact that the Quakes had a couple of chances and a man up, it's still scoreless in this game. But it wouldn't be scoreless for long, and this is where controversy number 2 happens. So a penalty was given to the Quakes after Vitor Costa was brought down by Blackman in the box. The reason why I put brought down with quotation mark is no, it was not a penalty in my book. It looked like Costa kind of embellished the foul. There definitely didn't look like there was any contact whatsoever from Tristan Blackman, and they did go to VAR to see whether or not indeed that, of course, the case. And when I saw that this was going to VAR, I'm thinking, well, this is going to be overturned, right? I mean, it was pretty clear as daylight that there was no contact with Blackman when he looked like he brought down Costa there. But to my biggest surprise, and I'm pretty sure to everybody's surprise, VAR says that the call stands. So yeah, like I said, this is one that Whitecaps fan will be absolutely fuming about, not just this call but also the red card call, because it just feels like, yeah, they're getting screwed over in this one. And it looked like the ball didn't lie in the 54th minute when Martinez actually hits the post on this penalty, but fortunately it bounced in there, which is again something that hasn't been a fortune for the Quakes lately. But yeah, nevertheless, that was 1-0 for the Quakes, albeit probably not deserved because of the fact that they got away with one there, and it's not very often I say this as a Quakes fan that they get the on the right end of the call for once, or get the beneficial of the end of the call. I don't want to say the right end of the call because that call obviously was not correct. But Rios would then look to answer, but he was denied by Danielle before Laborda, who puts it wide from close range. I thought the Whitecaps responded pretty well, but again, the Quakes, it feels like they're started to kind of bunker in. I've mentioned this before in other games, when even if you're the home team and you're trying to bunker down, and even if you have a man up, you don't want to do that. Like you got to keep going and trying to push forward, especially the quality that the Whitecaps has and that determination that they had. You just kind of had a sense that they're going to get themselves the equalizer, and the Quakes will regret the fact that they kind of shut up shop way too early in this one. Arango would then miss wide from close in the 69th minute before Daniel denied Nelson from close. Takaoka then denied Arango from close in the 86th minute, as I thought this game started to kind of become a bit of a knife edge. It seems like both of these teams were pressing for the next crucial goal, and in the 88th minute, the Vancouver Whitecaps would get that next crucial goal. And who else but Brian White? He scored from Blackman to tie the game up at one apiece up to this point, and I'm just thinking instant like, oh boy, it's one of those games, isn't it, for the Quakes? I've seen this story before at times this season, having tough times in terms of holding on to leads, and that it feels like they learned nothing from this bad run of form that they been in. Though in the 90th minute, Jones would look to answer, but he missed an absolute sitter on the header before Espinoza would hit it right to Takolka. And to the Quakes' credit, they were pressing hard again to try to get the lead, but I'm thinking, yeah, it feels like it's a little too late. Until it wasn't, because in the fourth minute stoppage time, Preston Judd, of course, he's channeling his Stephen Lanhart kind of moment in here as he scored here from Ricketts to make it 2-1 in favor of the Quakes. I mean, of all the late winners that the Quakes have scored, it's always Preston Judd. That's why I think he's really becoming a second coming of Stephen Lanhart, especially with the way that he plays. He has that very Lenny kind of ability that we see with past Goonies teams that the Quakes of course had. But nevertheless, yeah, the Quakes not only they got a win in this one, but I think they got away with one in a big time. I mean, it was not pretty. But hey, when you're in a bad run of form like the Quakes are in a run of form that they desperately need a win to keep themselves above the red line, this is exactly the one that they had as they win 2-1 in this one. Shots, this one 16 shots with 8 that Vancouver has, 3 shots on goal with a 5 that the Quakes had, 1 shots off target with a 7 that the Quakes had, 3 shots off block with a 2 that Vancouver has, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession that Vancouver has in this game. And I don't blame Vancouver fans being very upset with some of the referee decision, and will be once again very upset the fact that yeah these kind of games could maybe cost them in terms of finishing at the top of the Western Conference. I'm not gonna go too much laminate in terms of talk about bad refereeing because it feels like this is something I mention every single week, and I don't want to laminate too much because it gets a little bit too toxic after that. We know that there's some very bad refereeing in this league, and it's gotten to a point where you just kind of hope that you're on the right end of it. And like I said, the Quakes, for one of the few times that this season, and really for the one of the few time ever since I become a Quakes fan, they're on the right end of a controversial call. They always are kind of on the wrong end of it, so I was kind of a little surprised at the fact that they were on the right end of it, and able to get all 3 points in a game that, like I said, they desperately needed this win. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at all of the games for the Saturday night action. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these games. We got another weekend's action next week. There's no midweek games. Well, there is in terms of some U.S. Open Cup game. Well, it's one of the makeup U.S. Open Cup game between the Union and the Red Bulls that happened, and then we have a couple of Canadian Championship game that has happened. But yeah, it's kind of weird to see that we're not going to have some midweek action after for the past couple of weeks. We just feels like we had soccer every single day, and I'm kind of glad that we at least take a little break from it because while I love watching MLS action and I love watching MLS team play every single day, it does get a little bit exhausting at times, and that I do kind of maybe sometimes get a little burnout in terms of watching too much soccer. So I'm kind of happy the fact that we at least get a little break, and I'm pretty sure a lot of teams in MLS are probably very happy that they got themselves a week break because it's been a really tight schedule, even going back to July, especially for teams that participate in the Leagues Cup. This week break is desperately needed for some of these teams that is looking to trying to rest up and heading into the stretch run. And that, yeah, as we head to the stretch run, this is going to be very interesting to see the supporter shield battle, the playoff seeding as well, and especially the playoff race that is going on in the Western Conference. It feels like it's going to go down the wire, just like what we saw a couple of years ago, where the Western Conference race literally went down to decision day, and it turns into kind of like a mini play in tournament on decision day. But there you have it. Like I said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.